The morning air was crisp, the kind that hinted at the fading of summer and the approach of fall. I rolled out of bed and stretched, the soft glow of dawn filtering through the curtains. Emily was still asleep beside me, her dark hair splayed across the pillow. She looked peaceful, unaware that this day, of all days, would change everything. Today marked our 5th wedding anniversary. I'd woken up with a strange mix of excitement and nostalgia. 5 years felt like a milestone, a testament to the life we'd built together. I had envisioned the two of us celebrating quietly, just a simple dinner, maybe a toast to the years behind us and the years ahead. But Emily had other plans. She'd mentioned her friends wanted to take her out, some last-minute girls' night that didn't seem to include me. At the time, it didn't seem odd. After all, I had my fishing trip planned with the guys. Still, it nagged at me. As I slipped out of bed, Emily stirred and opened her eyes. "Hey," she mumbled, still groggy. "Morning, babe," I said, leaning over to kiss her forehead. "Happy anniversary." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Happy anniversary. What time are you heading out?" "In an hour or so." "You sure you don't want to spend the day together?" "I can cancel the fishing trip." Emily shook her head, a little too quickly. "No, don't be silly. Go enjoy yourself with the guys. I'm meeting up with Sarah and the others tonight. We'll do something tomorrow, okay?" I hesitated. "Tomorrow, huh? What happened to celebrating today?" She looked away, her fingers fiddling with the corner of the blanket. "It's just, the girls planned this night out. It's been in the works for weeks." I didn't want to bail. That unease in my gut twisted, but I forced a smile. "Okay. Tomorrow, then." I wasn't one to pry, and maybe that was my mistake. I'd always trusted Emily. We'd had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing major, nothing that made me question her loyalty. Still, something about her tone, her body language, it all seemed off. But I brushed it aside. Paranoia wasn't going to help anything. I kissed her again, told her I loved her, and headed out the door. Out on the lake, the sun was high, and the water shimmered like glass. The steady sound of the reel and the gentle slap of the water against the boat should have been calming, but my mind kept drifting back to Emily. I was trying to focus on the small talk. Joe was going on about his new promotion, while Dave cracked jokes about the one that got away, but I wasn't really listening. "Jacob, you all right, man?" "You're quiet today," Joe said, nudging me. "Yeah, just thinking about stuff," I replied, trying to shake the feeling gnawing at my gut. "You and Emily doing something special tonight?" Dave asked, casting his line into the water. I let out a short laugh. "Nah. She's got some girls' night planned. I'll probably just pick up a pizza or something and call it a night." Dave raised an eyebrow. "On your anniversary? That's rough, man." I shrugged, not wanting to get into it. "We'll celebrate tomorrow." It's no big deal, but even as I said the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. It was a big deal. It was our anniversary, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's priorities had shifted. We spent hours out on the water, catching a few small fish, drinking beers, and swapping stories. But the weight in my chest didn't lift. By the time we packed up and started heading home, I was itching to see Emily. Maybe I'd surprise her, show up at the bar and join her and her friends for a drink. Something to remind her that today mattered, that we mattered. It was then that my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting some meaningless notification. Instead, it was a message from Sarah. "Jacob, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you need to see something." Attached was a picture. It took me a moment to process what I was looking at. A dimly lit bar, crowded with people. And there, unmistakable in the corner of the frame, was Emily. She was leaning in close to some guy, tall, dark-haired, with his arms slung casually over her shoulder. The way they were looking at each other sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just a friendly night out. I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. "Hey, Jake, everything all right?" Joe asked from the front seat as we neared my place. I couldn't speak for a moment, my mind racing. "Yeah. Fine," I managed to mutter, stuffing the phone back into my pocket. But it wasn't fine. Not even close. That evening, when Emily came through the door, I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. The sound of the door closing behind her seemed louder than usual. She looked different, disheveled, almost guilty, but she tried to play it off. "Hey, I'm home," she called out, kicking off her shoes and hanging up her coat. I didn't respond right away, just kept my eyes on the TV. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the anger simmering just below the surface. "You have fun?" I asked, my voice cold. She paused, sensing the tension. "Yeah, it was fine." She hesitated, then added, "Why? What's wrong?" I turned off the TV and stood up, facing her. "I think you know exactly what's wrong, Emily." Her face paled, and she took a small step back, confusion mixing with fear. "Jacob, what are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and held up the picture Sarah had sent me. "Who's this?" Emily's eyes widened as she stared at the screen. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out for a moment. "I can explain," she stammered. "It's not what it looks like, Jacob. It's not what it looks like." I snapped, the anger rising now. "So you're telling me that on our anniversary, you weren't at a bar, cozying up to some guy while I was out with my friends?" Her lip quivered, and she looked like she was going to cry. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. We were just talking, Jacob." "It wasn't talking," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "That's how you talk to someone. With your hands all over each other." Tears began to spill from her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I made a mistake. A mistake," I said, my voice thick with disbelief. "A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash, Emily. This is betrayal." She stood there, shaking, her arms wrapped around herself like she could shield herself from the truth. But the truth was out now, and there was no taking it back. I stared at her, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built a life with. But in that moment, it felt like everything had been a lie. "I can't do this right now," I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Jacob, wait." I didn't wait. I couldn't. Not after seeing that picture, not after realizing that the woman I had loved for 5 years had betrayed me. I don't remember much about where I drove that night. I just needed to get away. The road was a blur, the streetlights flashing by like ghosts, and all I could hear was Emily's voice in my head, repeating over and over, "I didn't mean for it to happen." The nerve of her. On our anniversary, no less. 5 years of loyalty, trust, and love, all reduced to a single moment caught in a photo. I could feel the anger seeping into every part of me, burning hotter with each passing minute. The trust I'd placed in her, gone. Every memory of our marriage felt tainted now, as if everything we'd built was a lie. I ended up parking in some empty lot by the waterfront, staring out at the waves crashing against the shore. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought I might break it. But eventually, the fury cooled just enough for me to think straight again. I couldn't avoid her forever. This wasn't something I could run from. I had to go back. I had to confront her. When I got home, the lights were still on. She was waiting. The moment I stepped inside, the tension was palpable. Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped in front of her, eyes swollen and red from crying. She had been waiting for me, maybe hoping I'd calm down, but she was wrong. There was no calming down from this. "Jacob, please." She began, her voice trembling as she stood up from the table. I held up a hand, cutting her off before she could say anything else. Don't even start with whatever excuses you've been rehearsing." She flinched, her eyes filling with tears again. "I'm not making excuses. I just want to explain." "Explain?" I scoffed. "Explain what?" "That you were with another man tonight. On our anniversary. Tell me how that isn't exactly what it looks like." She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake, Jacob. I didn't plan for this to happen. I was just what, Emily? I snapped, taking a step closer. Just bored. Just looking for attention. What is it? Because I'm dying to know why you thought cheating on me was the solution to whatever the hell is going on in your head. Her lip trembled, and she looked down at her hands. I wasn't happy. Things between us, they haven't been right for a while. I felt disconnected. I laughed bitterly. Disconnected? And instead of talking to me, instead of working through it like a normal person, you decide to run off and find some random guy to. I stopped myself before I said something I couldn't take back, but the venom was already there, seeping into every word. Emily shook her head, wiping at her eyes. It wasn't like that. He's not some random guy, Jacob. He's someone I've known for a while. We were just talking, and it got out of hand. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Someone I've known for a while. Those words hit harder than anything she'd said so far. This wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment thing. She had been planning this, even if she didn't want to admit it. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my voice steady, but the rage was boiling over. So, how long has it been going on? I asked coldly. Emily blinked, taken aback. What? You heard me, I said, my voice deadly calm. How long have you been seeing him? Weeks? Months? How long have you been lying to me? Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She was caught, and she knew it. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice barely audible. A couple of months, that was it. The last thread holding my restraint together snapped. A couple of months, I repeated, laughing bitterly. While I've been here, busting my ass for us, you were sneaking around with another man for months. What the hell is wrong with you, Emily? I didn't plan for it to happen, she cried, her voice breaking. I didn't go looking for it. It just happened. I was feeling lost, and don't you dare blame this on some midlife crisis bullshit, I interrupted, my voice rising. You made a choice. You decided to betray me. You decided to throw away everything we built together for him. And for what? Some thrill, Emily sobbed, covering her face with her hands. Jacob, I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but please. I never wanted to hurt you. I stepped back, shaking my head in disbelief. Too late for that, Emily. You've already done it. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the weight of everything crashing down on us. Emily's sobs filled the room, but all I could feel was a numbness creeping in, replacing the anger with something colder. I don't know what you expect me to do now, I said finally, my voice hoarse. You broke our marriage. You broke us. There's no coming back from this. Please, she begged, stepping toward me, her hands outstretched. We can fix this, Jacob. I know we can. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll end things with him, and we'll go to counseling, I shook my head, cutting her off. Counseling? You think talking to some therapist is going to fix this? Fix us? There's nothing left to fix, Emily. You made sure of that. She collapsed into a chair, her face buried in her hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I watched her for a moment, feeling nothing but emptiness. Maybe once, I would have felt compassion for her, maybe even hoped that we could rebuild what had been broken. But now all I could think about was how badly I wanted to make her feel the way she made me feel, betrayed, shattered, and alone. I don't know what's going to happen next, I said, turning toward the door. But don't expect me to forgive you. Not for this. As I walked out, Emily's sobs followed me, echoing through the house. But I didn't turn back. Not this time. That night, as I lay alone in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Reconciliation wasn't even on the table anymore. No, I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about showing her that she couldn't betray me and walk away unscathed. If she thought she could rebuild her life with him after this, she had another thing coming. Emily had broken us, and now I was going to break her. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the guest room floor. I blinked against the brightness, memories of the night before flooding back. Emily's tears, her desperate pleas, and my own hollow anger crashed over me like waves. I tossed and turned, restless, consumed by thoughts of how I could make her pay. Revenge, it became the only thing that filled the void left by betrayal. I grabbed my phone, the screen still buzzing with notifications from friends checking in. But I wasn't in the mood for sympathy, I needed a plan. I opened a text conversation with Joe, one of my closest friends, knowing he'd be willing to help me with whatever I had in mind. Me, I need your help. A few moments later, Joe replied, Joe, what's up? You okay? Me, not really. Can we meet up? I have something I need to discuss. Joe, sure thing. Where? Me, the diner at noon. By the time I arrived at the diner, I'd already started to feel the adrenaline coursing through me. Revenge was a dangerous game, but it was one I was willing to play. I spotted Joe sitting in a booth, looking concerned but eager to listen. Hey, man, he said, sliding in across from me. You look like hell. Thanks, I replied dryly, picking up the menu but barely glancing at it. I'm not here to talk about me. I need to talk about Emily. Joe's brow furrowed. What about her? I want to ruin her art career, I stated flatly, the word surprising even me. She's been getting support from local galleries and patrons, and I want to cut her off. Jacob, are you serious? Joe leaned back, his expression shifting from concern to disbelief. You can't be thinking of doing something like that. It's just going to make things worse. Worse for her or worse for me? I shot back, my voice rising slightly. She shattered my trust, Joe. I have every right to make her feel the consequences of her actions. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I get that you're hurting, but sabotaging her career? That's crossing a line. You're better than that. Better than what? Allowing her to just go on with her life as if nothing happened. I leaned in, anger fueling my words. She deserves to know that her choices have repercussions. Joe studied me, his expression conflicted. I can't be a part of this, man. I don't want to see you become someone you're not. Then you don't have to help, I said coldly. But I'm doing this. I'm going to reach out to the galleries, to everyone who supports her. I'll make sure they know what she did. Jacob, he pressed, concern evident in his voice. You're only going to hurt yourself in the process. Think about it. Is this really what you want? I leaned back, crossing my arms. I don't care about the consequences. I care about making her feel the weight of her betrayal. That's all that matters. Joe shook his head, disappointment washing over his face. I don't think this is you. I know you're hurt, but vengeance won't fill the void. It'll just leave you emptier. But I was already too far gone, the seed of revenge taking root in my mind. I appreciate your concern, but I've made my decision. I'm not backing down. That afternoon, I started drafting emails. I'd done my research, found the galleries that had exhibited Emily's work, and I composed my messages carefully. I wanted to make sure they understood what kind of person they were supporting. Subject: concerning Emily Lawson. Dear gallery owner's name, I hope this message finds you well. I am writing to express my concerns regarding one of your featured artists, Emily Lawson. I believe it is crucial for you to be aware of her recent actions, particularly in regard to her personal life, which may reflect poorly on your gallery and its reputation. Emily has engaged in infidelity while claiming to be a devoted partner. As her spouse, I can assure you that her behavior is not representative of the values you might wish to associate with your establishment. I trust you will consider this information carefully. Thank you for your attention. Best regards, Jacob Lawson. As I hit send, a rush of satisfaction coursed through me. This was just the beginning. I moved on to contacting patrons, supporters, and even local art critics. Each message I sent felt like a small victory, chipping away at the life Emily had built for herself. Days turned into a week, and with each passing moment, I watched as my plan unfolded. Emily had been oblivious at first, but slowly, word began to reach her. I'd listened for her phone calls, her conversations with friends, and the growing tension in her voice. I could hear the confusion morphing into desperation. One evening, as I was cooking dinner, I overheard her on the phone in the living room. Her voice was a strained whisper. "No, I don't know why they're pulling my work. I haven't done anything wrong." She paused, listening intently. "Please, just give me another chance. I promise I'll make it right." It felt like a punch to the gut, hearing her beg like that. But instead of feeling pity, a dark sense of satisfaction washed over me. She was unraveling, and it was everything I wanted. When she finally came into the kitchen, her face was pale, and I could see the panic in her eyes. "Jacob, we need to talk." "Talk about what?" I asked, feigning ignorance while stirring the pasta. "About the galleries. They're saying they're no longer supporting me. They won't show my work anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "What's happening?" I turned to her, leaning against the counter with a casual air. "I have no idea, Emily. Maybe you should think about why they wouldn't want to associate with someone who has questionable morals." Her eyes widened as the realization hit her. "You did this, didn't you?" she accused, her voice rising. "You're behind this. How could you? This isn't just about you and me anymore. You're ruining my career." I shrugged, keeping my tone deceptively calm. "You did this to yourself. You chose to betray me. I'm just giving you a taste of the consequences." "You're being cruel," she spat, anger flooding her features. "This isn't who you are, Jacob. You're better than this." "Am I?" I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "Because it sure seems like you've misjudged me. You wanted to play with fire, Emily. Well, now you're getting burned." She stepped back, her face twisting in despair. "I thought you loved me. I thought we could fix this." "Love? You shattered that the moment you decided to cheat," I snapped. "This is your reality now, and I'm just making sure you understand that there are consequences to your actions." As she stood there, hurt and lost, I realized that I was no longer just hurting her, I was hurting myself. But the thought barely registered as the thrill of revenge continued to consume me. "I won't stop, Jacob," she said quietly, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "I will fight this. You can't take everything away from me." "Watch me," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. And with that, I knew there was no turning back. The path I had chosen was filled with darkness, and I was fully committed to seeing it through to the end. Days turned into weeks, and the fallout from my actions began to manifest in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Emily's art career, once a shining beacon of her talent, was crumbling before her eyes. The galleries had pulled their support, patrons were backing away, and the vibrant life she had built around her work was fading fast. I would hear her in the early hours, the sound of her muffled cries echoing through the walls of our once happy home. In the beginning, I felt a sense of victory, a rush of power knowing I was the architect of her downfall. But as the days wore on, a hollow ache began to replace that satisfaction. One evening, I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television, the noise barely registering in my mind. Emily came in, her expression a mixture of defeat and determination. She was a shadow of the woman I had once loved, her eyes dull and haunted. "Jacob, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. I didn't respond right away, hoping to maintain my distance. But as she stood there, vulnerable and raw, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the tone of her voice or the way she held herself, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that this was still the woman I had shared a life with. "Sure," I replied finally, not looking up from the screen. Emily took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting at her sides. "I know you're angry with me. I know I messed up. But destroying my career, it's too much, Jacob." I turned to face her, the bitterness returning. "What did you expect? You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed?" "I didn't think you'd go this far," she said, her voice rising. "I thought we could talk about it, figure things out. I didn't know you would choose revenge over love." "Love? I scoffed. You threw that away when you decided to cheat on me. You don't get to play the victim here, Emily. I'm not trying to play the victim, she shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. I'm trying to understand why you're doing this. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost, and I made a mistake. I'm not perfect, but I didn't deserve this. Deserve? You think you deserve anything after what you did? You need to wake up, Emily. This is reality now. You wanted to play the field, and now you're facing the consequences. Her expression softened, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I used to love. What if I told you I'm willing to fight for us? To fix everything? I'll end things with him, go to therapy. Whatever it takes, Jacob. Therapy? I echoed, shaking my head. You think that's going to fix the mess you've made? You've already shown me who you really are. I can't just forget that. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to give me a chance to make it right. She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. I'll work harder than ever to prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve. Just, please don't destroy my life like this. I could see the desperation in her eyes, and for a moment, I was tempted. Tempted to reach out, to forgive. But then the memory of betrayal washed over me, and that temptation faded like smoke. I don't know if I can trust you again, I admitted, my voice low. You've shattered everything we built together. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words died on her lips. For a moment, we stood in silence, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. I can't keep doing this, she finally said, her voice breaking. I can't keep watching my life fall apart because of one mistake. If you don't want me, just say it. Just let me go. The weight of her words hung in the air, and I felt a pang of regret. But I couldn't back down now. Maybe that's what you need to hear, Emily. Maybe it's time for both of us to move on. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I guess that's it then. You've made your choice. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the dim light of the living room. As the door closed behind her, I felt a mix of triumph and despair. I had achieved my revenge, but it hadn't come without a cost. Weeks passed, and I continued my campaign against Emily, but the thrill had dulled, replaced by a heavy sense of emptiness. The joy I once found in my work evaporated, and I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. One night, I found myself at a bar with Joe, trying to drown my sorrows in whiskey. You don't look good, man, Joe said, eyeing my glass. You need to stop drinking. It's not helping you. I shrugged, pouring another shot. I'm fine. No, you're not, he countered, leaning closer. You can't keep this up, Jacob. This isn't who you are. Who am I then? I snapped, slamming my glass down. I'm the guy whose wife cheated on him. I'm the guy who's been betrayed. What do you want me to be? I want you to be the guy who finds peace, who moves on, Joe replied firmly. You think destroying Emily's life is going to make you feel better? It won't. It'll only eat away at you until there's nothing left. I don't care, I shot back, the anger flaring again. I want her to know the pain I felt. I want her to suffer like I did. Joe sighed, shaking his head. And what happens when she's gone? When you've ruined her and pushed everyone away? You'll be left with nothing, Jacob. I didn't respond, the truth of his words hitting harder than any blow. Later that night, as I stumbled home, I noticed a flicker of light coming from Emily's studio across the street. I paused, watching as she sat at her easel, painting in solitude. The glow of the lamp illuminated her features, and for a brief moment, I felt a wave of longing. But as quickly as it came, it vanished, replaced by the cold reality of what we had become. I turned away, knowing I couldn't go back, not now. In the days that followed, Emily moved out, taking only what she could carry. I watched her from the window, her face set in determination, the weight of defeat heavy on her shoulders. She didn't look back, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and regret. As I stood there, I realized the full cost of my revenge. I had broken her, but in doing so, I had broken myself as well. The emptiness that filled my chest was a reminder of everything I had lost, not just Emily, but the love we had shared, the dreams we had built together. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the wall where her paintings used to hang. I had wanted revenge, but now all I felt was a profound sense of loss. In my pursuit to make her pay, I had lost everything that mattered. As I closed my eyes, I knew that the aftermath of my actions would linger long after the anger had faded. I had won the battle, but I had lost the war, and in the silence that enveloped me, I finally understood that revenge, when served cold, could leave a bitterness that no amount of satisfaction could ever fill.